Welcome to Fáilte Ireland's Developing and Implementing Standards of Performance programme. This programme will take a practical look at what standards of performance are, how they benefit your business, and how to develop and implement them to ensure they add long-term value for your business. To get the most out of this resource, please use it in conjunction with a media presentation and other accompanying downloads. Some other links you or your team may also find useful on Fáilte Ireland's Learning Hub are Introduction to Customer Service and Fundamentals of Food and Beverage Service. The primary objective for this programme is to upskill supervisors and managers in developing, communicating, implementing and monitoring standards of performance, or for short, SOPs, in order to achieve excellence in service delivery. We want this programme to make a real contribution to your business, and we have designed it to be clear, easy to follow, and very practical. You will be able to quickly implement the learning into your business. In this programme, we will define a 5-stage approach for using SOPs. Stage 1. Recognise how SOPs can transform your business. 2. Involve all your people in the SOP journey. 3. Develop SOPs that will delight your customers. 4. Bring SOPs to life in your business. And 5. Measure how SOPs are impacting the customer experience. In the first 3 stages, we will focus on developing and writing the SOPs, and in the last 2 stages, we will focus on bringing SOPs to life in your business and then measuring how SOPs are impacting the customer experience. In covering these 5 stages, we fully understand that life in our industry is very busy, and while there is some initial work involved in developing SOPs, this programme is designed to help you ensure that the SOP journey becomes a normal part of your day-to-day activities. Before we get started on our 5-stage framework, it is vital that you think about the context for developing your SOPs. We must all recognise that how we deliver our customer experience is always changing. As a result, our SOPs must also adapt and change. SOPs will be even more important for customers. They will be watching what you do more closely than ever. Because of this, you must lead by example and constantly reinforce the SOP message with all your team. You must also monitor and review them on an ongoing basis and adjust them if necessary. We must give customers confidence in our business, and SOPs are vital in helping us do that. Now let's look more closely at our SOP journey. And the word journey is used intentionally because achieving excellence in service is a journey, not a destination. Managing your SOPs will be something that becomes part of what you do every day, not a once-off task. Let's briefly look at what each stage entails. Stage 1. Recognise how SOPs can transform your business. By understanding the major contribution that SOPs can make to your business, you will be more motivated to introduce or indeed relaunch them. Stage 2. Involve all the team in the SOP journey. Here we will explore why it is vital to involve all your people from the start of the journey and to keep them involved throughout. This can be a really exciting process for everyone. Stage 3. Develop SOPs that will exceed your customers' expectations. Your SOPs should be designed to create a truly memorable experience for your customers. Stage 4. Bring SOPs to life in your business. This is often where businesses can falter on their SOP journey. They do all the hard work to develop SOPs, but over time, the SOPs just get forgotten about. Stage 5. Measure how the SOPs are impacting the customer experience. Like the old saying goes, if it isn't measured, it isn't managed. You will want to see real benefits from implementing your SOPs, and to do that, you will need to measure impact. As you set out on this journey, it is important not to treat this as a task to be done, but rather as a beneficial process that can really transform your business and, if done correctly, can engage your employees and excite your customers. Let's begin with stage 1. Recognise how SOPs can transform your business. I would like you to imagine for a moment that you visited your favorite restaurant twice in the same month. The first time you went, everything was perfect, just how you like it. But the second time, things were a little off. You choose the same main course that you love, but this time the presentation was quite different and the portion size was slightly smaller. Your waitress was not very friendly and she spilled some wine on the tablecloth. It wasn't a bad experience by any means, but the standards were not the same as the previous time, and this detracted from your evening. However, the bill was the same as last time. You left feeling a little let down by the experience and thought to yourself that for a change, you might try that new place in town next month. This, in a nutshell, is why SOPs matter. Without them, products and service will be inconsistent. Not necessarily bad, but in today's competitive environment, being good is just not good enough. You need to excel and deliver a consistently great experience, and SOPs help you to do just that. So, what are SOPs? For those that may not be totally familiar, a good place to start this section is to clarify exactly what we mean by SOPs. SOPs are clear, concise, and measurable statements describing how a product or service should be delivered, an agreed and repeated way of doing something, a summary of best practice, designed to meet and exceed customer expectations, and appropriate to your business. It is important to understand that an SOP comprises two elements. One, the standard, the outcome we want to achieve from a particular task. Two, the procedure, the step-by-step process describing how we will achieve the standard. We will discuss these elements in greater detail later in the session, but for now, think of the standard as being the outcome we want from a particular task, and the procedure is how to achieve the standard. As an example of what an SOP can look like, here is a sample SOP for complaint handling. Let's look at the standard first. See how the standard describes the outcome required from complaint handling, namely, guest complaints are treated with empathy and concern and handled in a prompt and efficient manner to ensure a resolution. Here's the procedure. And the procedure might look like this, with clear, logical steps shown on the left-hand column and associated actions to achieve the steps in the standard on the right side. Don't worry, in stage 3, we will examine in greater detail how to draft SOPs, but for now it is good to have a picture in your mind of what an SOP comprises, particularly if you're not familiar with them. Why do you need SOPs? This is often a question asked. As we highlighted at the start of this section, the main reason we need SOPs is because without an agreed way of delivering your product or service, your customer experience will be inconsistent. Even if you only have a small team, can you imagine if each one of them performed an important task their own way? How inconsistent your service would be from the customer's perspective. It is very important to emphasize here that by developing SOPs, you are not trying to standardize everything. You are simply guiding your team to do things the right way in order to deliver excellent service and delight your customers. Employees will still complete the task with their own style and personality. Other important reasons for SOPs include employee and customer safety. SOPs help to ensure the tasks are done safely. Compliance with regulations. By having SOPs for key tasks, you ensure that you are complying with regulations. Direction. SOPs let everybody know the correct way to do something. Communication. SOPs are vital for onboarding and training. Accountability. If an employee does not follow the SOP, you can discuss the performance gap with them. Organizational knowledge. SOPs help to capture all the knowledge within your business, so when people leave, you retain that knowledge. Performance management. SOPs can be used to measure customer satisfaction and form part of employee appraisals. Improves efficiency and saves time. SOPs, when well designed, can make tasks more efficient and reduce the time they take to complete. Certainly, they will reduce the time spent fixing mistakes because of inconsistent service delivery or accidents caused because the right procedure was not followed. So, what are the benefits of SOPs? Simply put, you cannot deliver excellence in service and build a great customer experience without having SOPs. And the benefits of striving to deliver a great experience are obvious. Great experiences make customers feel valued. They trust you, which builds their loyalty, encourages them to spread the word, and ultimately helps you build a positive market reputation. Provides clear direction for employees, making training easier, and provides basis for performance appraisal. And when you have happy, loyal customers and a positive reputation, this in turn contributes to increased profitability. From experience, we know that SOPs can transform your business across 4 pillars. Customer engagement. To develop effective SOPs, you need to think more about your customers and their changing needs. This brings you closer to them. You begin to focus more on their needs. Employee engagement. SOPs are essentially common goals that we all work towards. This helps build team spirit and cohesion. Process improvement. SOPs provide clarity for all managers and employees as to what is required. This reduces uncertainty and miscommunication. And in designing SOPs, you often find better ways of doing things. Performance management. The effectiveness of SOP delivery can be measured. This allows you to track progress, plan improvements, and recognize achievements. By managing your journey well, you will see tangible benefits across these 4 pillars. Over many years spent guiding companies on their SOP journeys, we have identified some common pitfalls that often derail the SOP journey. It is worth mentioning these now. Negative mindsets. Developing and implementing SOPs are sometimes seen as something to be done, as opposed to an opportunity to really build a great customer experience. You must get the mindsets right before starting the journey. SOPs present a great business opportunity. Poor communication. Everyone is unclear as to why you are developing the SOPs and how they can contribute. You must ensure that from the start, everyone understands what standards are and why they are necessary. Lack of involvement. Only a few people get involved in the journey, or it is a top-down process. To succeed, you must make it a team effort. Inadequate leadership. Nobody takes ownership of the process and drives it forward with enthusiasm. You must lead the SOP journey with passion and energy. Unstructured process. A clear structure is not adopted to develop, apply, measure, and improve the SOPs. You need to follow a clear plan with timelines and outcomes defined. Inconsistent application. The SOPs are introduced but not really adhered to, and/or they are forgotten about after a while. You must find ways to bring the SOPs to life in your business so they are a part of what you do every day. Under-resourced. The necessary resources to support the SOP journey are not provided. To ensure the SOPs can actually be delivered will require the allocation of resources such as time, equipment, and staffing levels. No measurement. There is no measurement of the impact of SOPs, so nobody sees their value. You must have a clear approach to measuring the impact of your SOPs. All these potential pitfalls can be avoided if you follow the 5-stage journey. Now that we have explored the benefits of SOPs and how they can really transform your business and highlighted some pitfalls to avoid, this should give you the motivation to really lead this SOP journey in your business. Let's move on to stage 2. Involve all your team in the SOP journey. Imagine for a moment you arrived at work today and your boss told you that she had redesigned your role and gave you a document telling you how to perform various tasks that you had been doing for many years. How would you feel? Not great, right? Would you be enthusiastic about following the directions in the document? Probably not. Most employees want to be involved in decision making surrounding their jobs. Stage 2 is about involving all your team in the SOP journey. I cannot emphasize enough how critical this stage is. The more you involve your team in the journey, the more they will respond to what you are hoping to achieve. And after all, it is your team who ultimately bring the SOPs to life every day, so they need to be involved from the very beginning and kept involved throughout. Employees at all levels must play a part in the development, implementation, and review of SOPs. As mentioned, owners and managers must lead the journey as you are ultimately responsible for the quality of the customer experience. Research shows that employees like to be included in decision making about their work, so involving them boosts motivation levels. Employees deliver the customer experience and often have a better understanding of how tasks should be completed to the correct and appropriate standard, so not including them would mean missing out on that knowledge. When employees are involved in designing and setting SOPs, they are far more likely to try and implement them. By involving everybody in the business, you are helping to build team spirit. The SOP journey must be a collective effort if it is to really succeed. There are some simple, practical things you can do to excite and engage your people about the SOP journey. These include create a buzz, treat it as a big deal, a great opportunity for the business. Maybe give the initiative an exciting name and launch it to everyone. Make a fuss about it. Start with why. Be sure that everybody understands why you are starting out on this journey. Keep things real and meaningful. Talk about real-world experiences. Ask employees to share their own experiences of good and bad service standards that they have witnessed in their own lives. Make it real for them, not a theoretical exercise. Create quick wins and maintain momentum. Have a plan with timelines. Create a clear deadline for getting the SOPs live in the business. Show quick wins so people feel things are happening. Do not allow the development process to drag on and on. People like to feel that they are achieving things. Be creative, make it fun. Be creative in how you set about drafting the SOPs. Don't just lock yourself into a room to do it. Let your people come up with the ideas how best to go about it. Don't drown in paper. Minimize the paperwork. Use pictures and even videos where possible. Tackle concerns or negativity early. Do not allow any negative individuals to hijack the process. Now that we have explored the importance of involving your people in the journey from the start and throughout, and looked at how to excite and engage them, let's move on to stage 3. Stage 3 is the heart of your journey, as this is where you develop your SOPs. As a result, it deserves all the time and attention it requires. Get this stage right and you will have a set of SOPs that will last well into the future with only tweaking required and that can transform the quality of your customer experience. Your SOPs should be designed to consistently deliver excellent service throughout the business and to make the experience you offer really stand out in the minds of your customers so that they become loyal customers and spread the positive word to others. We will begin here by picking up, again, some points mentioned earlier about what an SOP is. We will also answer some common questions all of us may have when starting to develop SOPs. Then we will look at some tips for drafting your own. We already highlighted that an SOP has 2 elements. The standard, which is the outcome we want to achieve from a particular task, and the procedure, which is a step-by-step process describing how we will achieve the standard. We will start here by focusing first on standards, why they are important, and how to write them. Then we will focus on drafting the procedure for each standard. Before getting down to developing your SOPs, an important question frequently asked is what influences the SOPs you set? The answer here is that there are many different influences, such as star rating. For example, a 3-star property will have different standards to a 5-star property and expectations that need to be met. Customers. From reading reviews, customers will have expectations of your business. The better your reputation, the higher the expectations, and therefore the higher the standards needed. Legislation. There are certain legal requirements that must be followed in any business, for example, health and safety, fire, and hygiene. Skill level of staff. Your standards need to reflect the ability of staff to provide a quality service that meets customer expectations. The company. The culture and ethos of your company will have an influence. You must lead from the front when developing and maintaining standards. Be the best that you can be. Additionally, there are always constraints that can impact the development and delivery of SOPs, so you need to keep them in mind as you prepare your own. Time. Is there enough time to complete the task to the standard required? Don't make SOPs so cumbersome that they cannot actually be delivered in a real-world setting. Communication. What is the best way to communicate each SOP to employees? As mentioned, images or even videos might be a better way to communicate an SOP than in writing. Staffing levels. What is the minimum staffing level required to maintain a standard? In designing your SOPs, you must factor in staffing levels. There is no point in having an SOP that can only be delivered infrequently. Cost. In developing your SOPs, also consider whether there are cost issues which may prevent something being done or that you might need to provide certain equipment to meet a standard. Unwillingness to embrace change. Some employees may struggle with change, and that is why you need to involve them early in the journey. But you cannot allow any individual or individuals to block the journey. Language barriers or learning difficulties. These can create misunderstandings and different interpretations of SOPs, so again, think of that when designing them. Consider including images and media clips when developing your SOPs. Also ways you will involve them in the journey if English is not their first language. With these influences and constraints in mind, we can now focus on 4 practical actions required to develop your SOPs. They are not complicated, nor do they have to take an inordinate amount of time to complete. The 4 actions are: Action 1. Decide what SOPs you want. Generate a list of tasks across your business where you identify a need for an SOP. Customer feedback could assist in this process. Action 2. Choose a format for your SOPs. We will offer a suggested format here, but you can decide on your own or refer to a previous template you might have used. Action 3. Set the standards. Draft the standards first. What do you want to achieve from this particular task? This focuses the mind on what outcomes you want for each of the tasks identified in Action 1. Action 4. Write the procedures, which is a step-by-step process describing how we will achieve the standard. When you have written and agreed all the standards, then work together on briefly describing the correct procedure for each standard. Remember to make sure that everyone is involved in writing the SOPs. Ultimately, you decide what SOPs you need, and they can be developed right across your business. SOPs might be developed for tasks. For example, making an Irish coffee, making a bed, pouring wine, or setting a table for breakfast. The best way to approach this is to think through the customer journey in each department and identify the critical touch points with customers. Each of these touch points would probably benefit from having an SOP. Also, think of where legislation requires you to do certain things, for example, payment, gathering customer information, and ensure you have SOPs for that. Areas. For example, this could be a bedroom, a cellar, a still room, or a changing room. Here you not only need to think of the customer as some areas are not customer facing, but they still make a difference to the service experience. For example, employee changing rooms do not directly impact on customers, but indirectly they do. Dirty changing rooms demotivate employees, so having an SOP that ensures they are well presented at all times would be a good idea. Also think of where legislation requires you to do certain things and ensure you have SOPs for that. For example, bathroom safety or kitchen safety. Activities. For example, this could be the purchasing of goods, dealing with complaints, or the service of food. Think of where legislation requires you to do things in a specific way and ensure you have SOPs for that, for example, food hygiene or safety. In defining what tasks you need SOPs for, if you are starting from scratch, remember this is a journey, so you do not have to develop all SOPs at once. Perhaps you can prioritize those critical SOPs now, get them developed and fully implemented, and then add more over time. Once you have decided on the list of SOPs you want, then you need to choose a format for developing and presenting them. We will use one approach here, which you can adopt or follow your own if you prefer. Here you can see the blank template whereby the standard sits at the top. Below the standard on the left-hand side, it shows the steps to achieve that standard. On the right-hand side, it shows the actions to achieve the standard during this step. Also, you should try to use photos and images, even videos where possible, to overcome language barriers and reduce paper. There are templates available in the downloads associated with this video. So the next action is to set the standards for each SOP you wish to develop. In simple terms, a standard may be described as a clear, concise, and measurable statement that focuses on the outcome required for a particular task or activity in order to exceed customer expectations, engage employees, and adhere to legislation. The goal for writing SOPs is to ensure that all employees are performing to a consistent level. We often write SOPs to our own level of understanding and capability. We should be writing them so that a new employee who has never worked in the business can clearly understand and follow them. Now that we know what a standard is and have explored some important considerations about drafting them, let's look at some tips you can keep in mind when writing your standards. Here is a sample standard for greeting and seating a guest. Our standard is: all customers are greeted in a timely and friendly manner, then seated in a professional and polite way. You can see how the language used is concise and clear, and the outcome focused. It is also measurable. Let's focus more on that measurability aspect. Here are the measurable words in the standard for greeting and seating a guest, which are highlighted. All customers are greeted in a timely and friendly manner, then seated in a professional and polite way. This helps the person reading it to focus in on what the measurements are and will also assist in setting the steps in the procedure. Here are some more examples of standards. Take a moment to spot the measurable words. Take example 1. A safe, hygienic environment will be maintained in accordance with all relevant legislation and regulations. Example 2. All maintenance problems will be reported and a corrective action taken in a fast and efficient manner. Maintenance issues must not be allowed to interfere with daily business. Example 1 is made measurable by these words. A safe, hygienic environment will be maintained in accordance with all relevant legislation and regulations. Example 2 is made measurable by these words. All maintenance problems will be reported and corrective action taken in a fast and efficient manner. Maintenance issues must not be allowed to interfere with daily business. These samples highlight that the way you write your standards is critical. They need to be clear and concise, measurable, not vague. There needs to be no uncertainty as to the outcome required. Now that we've covered the standard part of an SOP, let's shift our focus to writing procedures. The procedure, the step-by-step process describing how we will achieve the standard. If a standard is an outcome, then what is the procedure? A procedure is what must be done to achieve the standard in a detailed step-by-step process which can be understood by all. For every standard you identify, then you will need to write the procedure to achieve that standard. A procedure breaks down the completion of that task into clear, logical steps that are understandable to all, following a logical sequence, and measurable. Let's look at an example. Note in the example shown here how action words are used on the left-hand column. It is clear what the procedure is, and it is logical. A good way to develop a procedure is to either complete the task yourself and record the key steps, or just visualize it. This is where involving your employees' experience is so important. They can very quickly identify the steps required for most tasks in their area. For each step you identify, you then need to think of how it needs to be performed. For example, let's take the first step in the procedure. Acknowledge and greet customers as soon as they arrive, with a smile. You could leave it at that, but further guidance would probably be helpful. So you can break the step down into key actions that can be taken to achieve this step. Add these actions in the right-hand column, where you can see that for the first step some guidance is added, namely, all customers will be welcomed within 1 minute of arrival. All employees welcome customers with a smile, good eye contact, and an interested facial expression. Employees use the correct greeting. Customers are addressed by their names, if known. These are essentially the quality points that tell you the step is completed correctly. This is very helpful when you use the SOPs as training tools or for checklists to measure performance of the standard. To close on this section of drafting your SOPs, remember this is your journey, so you decide how many SOPs to have, the format to draft them, and so on, but do try to follow the best practice guidelines here. To ensure that you have not missed out on any points, do a practical check before you put it into place. Get a second opinion to see if you have missed out on a vital point. Give the SOP to an inexperienced person to see if they understand it and carry out the task to the required level by following the SOP. Try it out before you put it into practice. Now that we have explored how to develop SOPs that exceed customer expectations, that brings us to the end of stages 1, 2, and 3 in this video. The next action for you should be to develop or redevelop your SOPs based upon the learnings from this session in conjunction with the downloadable templates, sample SOPs, suggested standards for various departments, and slides. It is important to maintain momentum, so make it a priority to immediately get your people involved in better understanding why SOPs are so valuable and to start the process of developing them. There are some useful downloads available to help you with this. When your SOPs are developed and ready, I strongly recommend that you continue to watch the remainder of the video, which will focus on bringing those SOPs to life in your business. By now, you should have the SOPs developed for your business, so well done for that. Now the challenge is to put them to work for you in helping to exceed your customers' expectations. So let's move on to stage 4 of the journey. Bring SOPs to life in your business. After all your hard work in developing your SOPs, you will want them to have a big impact on your customer's experience. To do that, you need to bring them to life every day in your business. In this section, we will explore some options for doing this. As a general warning here, if you get everyone motivated and involved in the SOP journey and then do not follow through with implementation, this can be very damaging for the morale of your team and can cause significant problems in your business. Businesses that lack follow through not only achieve less, but they often have morale problems because employees feel there is a lack of consistency. And that's why you sometimes hear employees saying things like, "This is just the flavour of the month, it won't last." Once you get this far, do not let things stall. Here are some very practical things you can do to bring your SOPs to life in your business, in no particular order of importance. Communicate the SOPs. Naturally, you need to communicate the SOPs to all your team, and we have discussed how to do this. Some SOPs will be on paper, but others can better be communicated by images or even videos. In particular, managers in every department must be experts in all the SOPs for their area, so they can appropriately guide, train, and supervise employees on them. Discuss SOPs at every daily or shift briefing. This is linked to the above point. Make SOPs part of the daily discourse. Talk about them all the time. Train using the SOPs. Even if employees have been with you for a long time, your new SOPs may have additional requirements, so refresher training or corrective coaching may be needed. For new team members joining, make sure that the SOP training forms part of their overall induction. Empower employees. It is important to empower your employees to take decisions around the delivery of certain SOPs. For example, this can be particularly important for those SOPs related to issues like complaint handling. Supervise the ongoing implementation of SOPs. There is no substitute for good daily supervision in bringing the SOPs to life. If managers and supervisors ignore non-performance to standards, then the SOPs will be quickly forgotten about. Introduce Standard of the Week concept. Some businesses emphasize a different SOP in each department on a weekly basis to keep them fresh in everyone's mind. During that week, there is retraining on that SOP and discussions within the team about how well it is being delivered. Praise and give feedback. When seeing an SOP being followed, it is important to give immediate feedback to the employee or employees in question. These regular pats on the back reinforce in employees' minds that the SOPs are important and worth adhering to. We all like praise when justified. Link employee recognitions and rewards to SOP delivery. More formally, all recognition and reward systems should be aligned to the delivery of SOPs. For example, if you have an Employee of the Month type scheme, part of the criteria for that award should be adherence to SOPs or similar. Allow employees to self-assess the performance against SOPs. You should empower your employees by allowing them to regularly self-assess themselves against their SOPs. We will revisit this issue in the next section. Align your customer feedback service to the SOPs. Customer feedback is vital, of course, but you also want to ensure that the feedback you are gathering is linked to the SOPs. This is critical because if you don't ask the right questions, then you won't have the data you need to determine whether the SOPs are having an impact. This feedback should be communicated to employees regularly. The same applies to any mystery shopping visits you organise in your establishment. They must be aligned to your SOPs. Finally, to truly bring the SOPs to life in your business requires leadership. If all managers and supervisors are not motivated to deliver them, then you will have problems no matter what else you try to do to bring them to life. Leading by example is vital here, as it is for most issues at work. Let's move on to think about stage 5 in the journey. Measure how the SOPs are impacting the customer experience. The main reason for undertaking the SOP journey is to achieve excellence in service, and the only way to determine if that outcome is becoming a reality is to measure the impact that your SOPs are having. As we move through this section, keep in mind that if something is not measured, it is not managed. And without evidence to guide decision making, you simply cannot improve the quality of your customer experience. Before we start here, let's quickly focus on a common misconception about standards. You frequently hear people saying things like, "Oh, the standards here have fallen." But that is the wrong way to look at this. In the diagram, you can see that the standard does not change. What changes over time is performance to that standard, so you get what we call the service gap. Remember, standards don't fall, performance does. It is more important to tell a staff member that your performance is not up to standard rather than saying your standards have fallen. Now let's focus on the measurement of the impact of SOPs. There are many ways to measure the quality of your customer experience, and you probably do some or all of these already. Let's explore how to measure both implementation and impact. Starting with implementation. Unless the SOPs are continuously implemented, you will see little or no positive impact on the customer experience. So measuring implementation is the first step. Some important measures here include supervision. As mentioned, supervision is the front line of measurement. If the SOPs are not being adhered to, they can never make an impact on the customer. Team self-assessment. We also touched on this point. Allowing team members to self-assess the performance to the SOPs gives them a sense of ownership and keeps them involved in the journey. Employee feedback. As well as allowing them to self-assess themselves against the SOPs, it is also important to gather employee feedback about the SOP journey. A good way to do this is via your employee survey, and the information gathered here can help you improve the journey for them. Quality checks. Creating and using internal quality checklists is a great way to monitor implementation. We will return to checklists in a moment because they are extremely important tools. To measure the impact of your SOPs on the customer experience, you have to, as far as is possible, align your feedback tools to the SOPs. Complaints provide a direct and valuable measurement of the impact of your SOPs. If you consistently apply your SOPs, you should see a reduction in the overall number of complaints, and each complaint should be analysed to see which SOP has not been adhered to. So even the number of complaints can be a useful tracking metric. The key customer feedback tools used are frequently comment cards and surveys. A simple example here is that you might already have a question in one of your surveys about the greeting, but perhaps in developing your SOP you added in a time element, greeted within X amount of time. If you did, it would be important to adjust your survey to gather feedback on that part. In terms of online reviews, this often comprises unstructured comments by customers, so it's harder to align to SOPs, but you should still be able to see improvements in overall ratings, achieved over time as a result of consistent application of your SOPs. Also, when reviewing customer comments, it is possible to identify which SOP is being praised or criticised. For mystery guests, when used, make sure that the criteria they are assessing the experience against are fully aligned to your SOPs. This combination of implementation and impact measurement will allow you to see the benefits of your SOP journey over time. Your goal should be to use the results from these measurements to identify areas for improvement, or AFIs as we call them, that you can then work on to get even better. We will examine the issue of continuous improvement in the next section. I mentioned a moment ago that we would return to checklists as they are a simple but vital tool for helping you monitor the implementation of your SOPs. You should create a checklist for each SOP in each department and simply rate on a yes or a no basis whether the SOPs are being consistently achieved. These checklists can be used by managers and supervisors to track progress, and they can do a daily or shift summary checklist based on their observations. The checklist can also be used by employees themselves for self-assessment. If you remember, in session 1, we developed an SOP for greeting and seating. All customers are greeted in a timely and friendly manner, then seated in a professional and polite way. We will now turn the steps in the procedure into a checklist. In the sample shown, You can see how easy it is to convert an SOP into a checklist. Every no on the checklist becomes an area for improvement on the action plan. Through your implementation and impact measurements, you will have a lot of feedback and data to guide your improvement actions. But unless you have a structured approach to identify and address areas for improvement, you run the risk of not properly addressing them. You must follow a clear path for addressing areas for improvement identified through your measurements, from problem identification to solution implementation. This involves identifying areas for improvement and their root causes, deciding on the best solution, allocating ownership for implementation, and defining timelines and follow-up. Use a simple action plan template to plan improvements such as the one shown. If you follow a structured process throughout each department for measuring outcome and continuously improving, you will see significant changes in your customer feedback and ratings over time. To help you empower your team to deliver standards of performance, do all the things we mentioned to bring your SOPs to life in your business over the longer term. Discuss SOPs and customer feedback at all departmental or team meetings. This keeps employees actively engaged with the SOP journey and thinking about excellence in service. Constantly upskill your employees. The more skilled they are, the better the service. As part of that training, focus on proactive service rather than reactive. Listen to and act upon what your measurement data is telling you so that you can continuously improve. Create a cross-functional service improvement team to continuously review feedback and plan service improvements. Encourage ideas and suggestions from all employees on how to address areas for improvement and/or improve service generally. Value your employees and work hard to engage them. Engaged employees are the key to the business's success. Happy employees equals happy customers, and happy customers equals better bottom line. This brings us to the end of our exploration of the 5-stage SOP journey. I hope you have found it useful. For you, the journey is just beginning, and the important message from this session should be to face into that journey with a positive mindset and enthusiasm, focused on making a real difference to the quality of your customer experience. Treat the journey as an exciting opportunity for your business, not a task to be completed and rushed through. Remember, this journey has the potential to transform your business across 4 pillars: customer engagement, employee engagement, process improvement, and performance management. And remember to make use of the supporting downloads. Please take the time to update your SOPs and give them the attention they deserve. If you do, you will see over time improvements to your employees' skills and performance, your business and customer satisfaction levels. Be sure to take full advantage of the downloads available in the resource section of this page. Some other links you or your team will find on Fáilte Ireland's Learning Hub that you may find useful are Introduction to Customer Service and Fundamentals of Food and Beverage Service. Thank you for taking the time to participate in this programme and enjoy the journey.